Let's go Dolphins! Something big might be brewing behind the scenes in Miami, and if what we're hearing turns out to be true, it could completely change the direction of this rebuild faster than anyone expected. There's a move on the table that could shock a lot of fans, and trust me, it's already creating debate inside the fan base. But before I reveal what's really going on, make sure you hit that like button if you still believe this team is heading in the right direction. And I want to see who's riding with this squad no matter what. Drop a comment right now and write, I believe in the Dolphins, the future is ours. Now let's get straight into it. There's a growing buzz that the Dolphins front office, led by John Sullivan, could be exploring a move that not many people expected, trading up in the draft. Yes, you heard that right. Moving up from the 11th overall pick to potentially the 7th spot. At first glance, this doesn't seem to make much sense. This is a team that is clearly entering a rebuild phase. They hold 11 total picks, including 7 inside the top 100. That kind of draft capital is gold when you're trying to reshape a roster from the ground up. So why would Miami even consider giving that up? That's the big question. From what's being discussed, if the Dolphins were to move from pick 11 to pick 7, the value difference sits around 250 points on the traditional draft value chart. That means Miami would likely need to include additional assets, potentially 2 third-round picks, like selections around 90 and 94 overall, just to make the numbers work. And here's where things get interesting. The only logical reason you make that kind of move is if there's a specific player you absolutely cannot afford to miss. Someone you believe will be gone before pick 11. And when you analyze the teams picking between 7 and 10, teams like the Commanders, Saints, Chiefs, and Bengals, one thing becomes very clear. There is a massive demand for defensive talent in that range. That tells us everything. If Miami is seriously considering this move, it's almost certainly for a defensive game changer. We're talking about players who can step in immediately and transform one of the weakest defensive units in the league right now. Names like Mansour Delane, Caleb Downs, David Bailey, Sonny Styles, and Ruben Bain Jr. are being linked to this conversation. These are not just solid prospects, these are potential cornerstone players. And there's another layer to this. There have also been subtle hints about possible roster changes, including whispers involving linebacker Jordan Brooks. If that situation develops, it could further explain why Miami might be targeting someone like Sonny Styles as a replacement. At the same time, the Dolphins secondary has been described as one of the weakest in the league, which makes a player like Caleb Downs incredibly attractive, someone who could instantly elevate the defense from day one. But here's where the debate really gets intense. Is it worth sacrificing multiple valuable picks in a rebuild just to move up 4 spots? On one side, you have the argument that elite talent is worth the price. If you believe a player is a true difference maker, you go get him, no hesitation. On the other side, you have the reality of rebuilding a roster. Depth matters, young talent matters, and having 4 third-round picks gives you flexibility to address multiple needs across the team. Even within the organization, this kind of decision would not be taken lightly. Because if Miami stays at 11, there's still a chance they land a high-quality player. But there's also a very real scenario where all the top defensive prospects are gone by the time they're on the clock. And that's the risk. And here's where things take an even more intriguing turn. Because when you dig deeper into what the Dolphins could actually be planning, you start to realize this isn't just about moving up 4 spots. This could be about setting the tone for the entire 2026 season and beyond. Think about it. If Miami pulls the trigger on a trade like this, they're sending a very clear message. They are not just rebuilding, they are targeting impact. They are identifying specific players they believe can become the backbone of this new era. And that kind of conviction doesn't come lightly. Because let's be honest, Dolphins fans, this roster is in transition. Moving on from key names, reshaping identity, trying to build a culture that can finally compete at the highest level again. And in moments like this, the decisions made in the draft room can define the next 5 years of the franchise. Now, imagine this scenario. Draft night, the Dolphins are sitting at pick 11. The board starts falling, and one by one, those elite defensive names begin to disappear. Mansour Delane? Gone. David Bailey? Gone. Ruben Bain Jr.? Off the board. And suddenly, you're sitting there with a choice that doesn't feel nearly as strong as it did just a few picks earlier. That's exactly the nightmare scenario this front office might be trying to avoid. Because from everything we're hearing, there's a belief inside the building that at least 3 to 4 of those top-tier defensive prospects will be available around pick 7, but not necessarily at 11. And if that's true, then staying put becomes a gamble. Now let's talk about the Ohio State connection, because this is something that cannot be ignored. John Sullivan and assistant GM Kyle Smith were both present at Ohio State's Pro Day. That alone doesn't confirm anything, but when you combine that with the names being discussed, it starts to paint a picture. Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles. Two players, two tone setters, two guys who bring versatility, physicality, and leadership to a defense that desperately needs all three. Downs, with his ability to impact both the run and pass game from the safety position, could instantly stabilize a secondary that has struggled. Styles, a former safety turned linebacker, brings a unique hybrid skill set that modern NFL defenses crave. These are not just good prospects. These are culture changers. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Safety and linebacker are not premium positions in today's NFL, and that's where the internal debate becomes even more intense. Are you willing to give up multiple valuable picks for a player at a position that traditionally isn't prioritized at the very top of the draft? Some will say yes, because elite talent is elite talent, regardless of position. Others will say no, because in a rebuild, you need volume. You need as many chances as possible to hit on young players across multiple positions like offensive line, edge rusher, and cornerback. And let's not forget, those third-round picks Miami could potentially give up, that's where you often find hidden gems. Starting caliber players. Guys who outperform expectations and become key contributors on rookie deals. Losing two of those, that's not a small price. So what we're really looking at here is a philosophical crossroads. Do the Dolphins trust their scouting and development enough to build through quantity? Or do they believe they've identified a defensive cornerstone worth making a bold move for? Because if they do make this trade, there's no going back. You're committing to that player. You're betting on him becoming a star. And if he doesn't, the cost will be felt across the roster. But if he does, that's how you change a franchise. Because at the end of the day, this decision isn't just about one pick. It's about identity, direction, and how aggressive this new Dolphins regime truly wants to be moving forward. If Miami decides to stay at pick 11, they're essentially telling the fan base, we trust our process, we trust our board, and we believe talent will still fall to us. That's the patient approach. That's the long game. And in a rebuild, that's usually the safer route. But if they trade up, that's a statement. That's a front office saying, we've seen enough. We know who we want, and we're not leaving this draft without him. And Dolphins fans, you know how rare that kind of conviction is. Now let's take this one step further, because there's something else that hasn't been talked about enough. Pressure. There's pressure on John Eric Sullivan. There's pressure on this front office to prove that this rebuild is going to work. Moving on from big names, reshaping the roster, changing the identity of the team, all of that creates expectations. And one thing that accelerates belief, both inside the locker room and among the fans, is landing a star. Not just a good player, a star. Someone who walks into that building and immediately changes the energy. Someone who sets the tone in practice, in games, in the culture. And defensively, that's exactly what Miami is missing right now. We're talking about a unit that, on paper, has been described as one of the weakest in the league. That's not something you fix with just depth pieces. That's something you fix with impact players. So if the Dolphins truly believe that one of these prospects, whether it's a Caleb Downs, a Sonny Styles, or even an elite edge like David Bailey or Ruben Bain Jr., can be that guy, then suddenly, the idea of trading up doesn't feel so crazy anymore. It feels calculated. It feels intentional. It feels like a risk, but one worth taking. But here's the flip side, and this is where you, as a fan, really have to think about it. What happens if they stay at 11, and the board actually falls in their favor? What if a top-tier defensive player unexpectedly slides? What if a team ahead of them goes offense, maybe a wide receiver, maybe something unexpected, and suddenly Miami is sitting there with a premium talent without giving up